We are less than a week away until the launch of Total War Saga Troy's Mythos DLC, as well as a full release on Steam. With it, we'll be able to plunge into a fully mythological world, adding new units, grand expeditions to hunt one of 3 prolific monsters, adding them to your army as you fight your way across the Aegean. But with the update, we'll also be getting another new mode, Historical Campaign. This will strip away all the fantastical elements and even changes the campaign map that you're playing on. In this video today, we'll quickly go over each mode to help you determine how you'd like to play Total War Troy come September 2nd. I won't be showing off a ton of gameplay, and this will be relatively spoiler-free. We'll simply load up a brand new campaign, talk about some elements before moving on to the next game mode. You can quickly navigate to any portion of the video that you'd like using the chapters in the timeline and the description. In the fashion of upfronting the knowledge in my videos, let me give you a quick rundown of the 2 new modes. The historical mode, as I said, takes away all the fantastical elements as well as single entity play from the game. Think of it like playing Total War Bronze Age, focusing mainly on Greece, its surrounding islands, and Western Anatolia. Truth behind the myth, you already know about that, and mythological brings more mythological units to the game while also adding 3 new monster expeditions in conjunction with active abilities from the gods to use on the battlefield. So that's a quick breakdown of what we'll be talking about today, and if that's all you wanted to know, feel free to shut the video down. But before you do, and for anyone else watching, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe if you end up enjoying the video. The amount of blood sacrifices I've had to do to the gods of Mount YouTube to appease the ever-hungry algorithm is just insane. And lastly, you can't pre-order Troy on my Nexus Store, but if you're looking to pick it up when the game goes live, you can use the link in my description and pinned comment. They get Steam keys directly from the developer, and it's a great way to support the channel. Well, let's get started on our Troy game mode guide. Opening up, we'll talk about the new Select a Campaign menu, and this is pretty straightforward. You press New Campaign, and now you're prompted with 3 different campaign styles: Historical, Truth Behind the Myth, and then Mythological. If this is your first time playing the game, I would encourage you to play Truth Behind the Myth just a little bit to get through the tutorial mode's experience and learn some of the stuff about the game. Alternatively, you can watch my beginner's guide that I made linked in the upper right hand corner. Now, I did make this when the game originally came out, but there is nothing new or there's nothing mechanically that has changed across any of the 3 modes to make that guide irrelevant. So even if you were to watch that guide and play historical or mythological, you would be just fine. But let's move now into historical and talk a little bit about that. So here is the map in the historical mode, and you can see that even just looking at this, it looks vastly different. It's a little less a lot less saturated than even the Truth Behind the Myth version. There's not a bunch of wild stuff across the map. There's no statues, nothing for the most part. It is, again, grounded as much as it can be in historical fact. Let's go ahead and just take a look here as we look around. There's no little icons on any of the settlements that say, hey, here's where harpies are. Usually if you were playing this in one of the other modes, you'd be able to get giants over here. It still preserves some really cool things like stuff like this, the Eternal Flame of Marinos. You'll still get stuff like that around the map that has really cool cultural significance. So you will still get that flavor and that feel. Some of the big stuff here that's going to change, though, is how your actual hero plays on the actual battle map, and how the gods interact with you in the campaign. So let's go ahead and press this button and open up Big Daddy Hector's skill tree. So to start off here, well, actually looking back here, if I hover over this, it tells me his bodyguard. He starts off with Renowned Swordsman. So in the other 2 versions of the game, if you have, say, a horse or a chariot, you equip it on your hero, and that hero has that. He is a single entity unit on the battlefield, just that character. In the historical mode, just like we have with previous Total Wars, he has a bodyguard, and he is no more or less powerful than any other any other unit of that rank. So it's just simply that this is a renowned swordsman led by Hector himself. So probably has better leadership and some other passive benefits that he grants as a means of being that character. That's it. He, again, is not a single entity powerhouse that's going to be stomping through things. I will say, though, that it is nice because when you play any of the previous Total Wars, your hero has a chance to just get completely killed on the battlefield if you throw him into combat. And I'm not encouraging you to throw your hero into combat with your bodyguard. I'm just saying that if you do, it's not as likely he's going to get killed immediately like it is in previous Total Wars. It's quite nice. So you can see here there's a renowned swordsman. If I click this, I can't switch it out. But as I go down my skills, where's his first one? Here's this first one. I can switch this out for Guards of Troy or for Trojan Defenders at rank 6. And there's another one down here for Champions of Troy or Hector's Chosen. I believe there's another one. Oh, maybe it was just the other character I was looking at. Oh, here's another one here for Heavy Trojan Chariot at 13. So he does have a bunch of options to change his bodyguard as he progresses through his ranks and levels up. You can just simply swap in a different bodyguard if you so wish. Now, another important thing when it comes to battle is that when you're fighting another opponent on the battlefield, it's not like it is in Warhammer or it is in Truth Behind the Myth or Mythological. If you get enough good charging in there, everything will just rout, just like it will in Rome or Attila. So this is not necessarily a big, long, protracted war with heroes fighting valiantly on the battlefield. It is a little bit more true to form, a historical representation of, oh, hey, if you're using militia that has poor leadership, like you do start off with in the game, I think these guys are here, Militia Warband, that morale's 40. They're going to crumple very fast. So you'll actually notice that when you're fighting in the early portions of the game, your armies will not last the entire battle. They'll flee more often than not because they're either getting picked apart by ranged attacks or by big charges. And with that too, you also have the new Divine Will. And I say new, but I mean the different Divine Will. Let's just hover over Athena here. If we can see this, she for the most part is going to grant a number of passive abilities. Increases to melee attack of spear units, recruitment rank, percentage increase to melee defensive shield unit, again, experience gain, all heroes are unbreakable in battle, stuff like that. Things that are just going to simply be passive only bonuses. Athena will have no presence in the battlefield. She will not grant you access to epic agents or anything of the sort. It's just simply that anytime you do these prayers or hecatombs, you're simply going to be progressing through the Divine Will meter, and a prayer will give you the passive bonuses on the left and right here, depending upon what your actual rank is with that Divine Will. So, for all intents and purposes, that is historical mode. Everything else, for the most part, will play exactly the same. Diplomacy is the same. The royal decrees are all the same. Even the characters themselves are the same, for the exception of they will not have any crazy god-focused abilities, right? Like, oh, the might of Ares, where a sword smashes down or anything like that. It's all, again, just going to pretty much be stuff like this. Hey, Vanquish, it gives me speed bonuses. This is going to give me a bonus to my weapon damage and AP. You're not going to get anything that's going to have some sort of big sweeping attack. Nothing like that. Again, this is all simply grounded in history as best as possible. And again, to the campaign map, as you can see, looks still gorgeous. It's just not the same style as the other two modes. Let's move now into Truth Behind the Myth to just talk a little bit about that. Even though that's the standard mode, we won't go into it too much. I just want to quickly touch it. With Truth Behind the Myth, you can see that the map itself already looks different, and it's going to get even crazier once we jump to Mythological. The color palette has changed, right? A lot more bright and highly saturated colors. You can see things across the map that are a little bit more indicative of the mythology portion of this game mode, but still relatively subdued, right? We don't have any huge statues of any mythological units, nothing of the sort. Let's go ahead and take a look here, though. Across the actual map, we can see stuff like this. Harpies can be recruited, and this region requires a building, because obviously with the Truth Behind the Myth mode, we will get the kind of, again, truth behind the myth of any of those mythological units. Harpies, the Cyclops, Minotaurs, Spartoi, stuff like that. And when we take a look at Hector himself, you can see his profile is way different, right? Because he is now a single entity. As I've said before, Truth Behind the Myth will bring that back out. So you'll have single entity heroes, you'll have single entity epic heroes of the sort as well. That's another thing to mention that history does not have, obviously, is no epic heroes. But all those things will come back into the game, as well as your skills that are more God-focused, that allow you to do big sweeping amounts of damage, so on and so forth. Also looking at Divine Will, we'll just look at Athena again. This will enable the recruitment of Gorgons onto the battlefield, or if we look at Poseidon, this is going to give me the recruitment of Cyclops, and we get passive effects. So passive effects now get layered with epic agent recruitment, or in the case of, say, Ares, I can now recruit, unlocks the recruitment of Spartoi, which are a unit, not an epic agent. So these are some of the different things, as well as the ability for your hero to have different mounts, and those mounts will then dictate whether or not he's on horse or on chariot. And let's also press this button. Press this button over here for recruit agent. We have all the different types of agents, including the epic agents that you did not have in the historical mode. And lastly, we have the new Mythos mode. Again, the map has changed. You now have a lot of crazy things going on. So even if I just look at the skyline, I can see all sorts of Greek mythological beings and the such, like representations of the wind, like Boreas, and so on and so forth around. You can even see the Egyptian gods here if I look to the south, which is really cool, right? Any direction you look, you'll see something relevant to that direction in Greek mythology. Like, again, like the representations of the wind to the west, to the north, and then over here to the east. Really, really cool little touch there. Also, on the actual game map itself, we can see where the locations of certain things are, right? We get this huge statue for the Cyclops. And each one of these statues is going to give us a little bit of fun lore about why that statue exists there as it pertains to that actual area, right? Really cool little bit. And we get little cool things like this across the map, and there's should be some pillars over here. Yeah, there's these pillars. It just has random bolts of lightning dropping down. You'll have humongous like pieces of armor that are just coming out of the water or just jutting out of mountaintops. So things obviously from mode to mode look different. Also, when it comes to the actual hero himself, for the most part, he's going to play very similar to your truth behind the myth. Not a lot of difference here. Skills and equipment are, again, going to be, for the most part, very similar. Not a ton of change. Maybe some things that are highly mythological that pertain to their specific story, so on and so forth. What is different here is the divine will. Almost click diplomacy. So if I click on Athena this time, we get some differences. We get passive abilities that we had in all three game modes. We get epic agents, which we got in the last game mode, but we now get new active abilities that are, well, active whenever you pray to the specific gods, depending upon your placement on the divine will. And these active abilities will be things like, on the right here it says Aegis Palace, which will give me some buffs to my overall. I think if I actually select it, it'll show me over here. No, it doesn't. But what it does is it gives you defensive bonuses. If I look at Poseidon, this will give me the tidal wave divine ability with 3 charges. And this is literally a tidal wave that will crash through your opponents on the map. Or Zeus's Thunderbolt, which, you guessed it, it's a thunderbolt that's going to crash down on your enemy on the actual battle map. These things that are added with the mythological mode. Now, in addition to that, I don't think Hector starts with any... Oh, okay, he does. There are a lot of new mythological units. There's a lot more variety. It used to just simply be, okay, you're giants, there's like 1 or 2 giants. Now you've got giant spearmen, you've got giant skirmishers, you've got giant vanguard, you've got a lot of different types of giants to get access to. And it's nice because one of the big problems with Truth Behind the Myth is that there was such a limited amount of mythological units you could actually get. Now, every single character starts with the ability to have some sort of mythological unit to pull from. And again, the mythological units are great in the game. They have all been redone. They all look beautiful and awesome. The Cyclops is huge. The Corybantis look like gigantic anthropomorphic lion men. Here's what a Corybantis looks like in the game, actually on the battlefield. The centaurs all over the place. So you can find these locations a little bit easier too by just kind of seeing these humongous statues. The little icon still exists, right, for telling you, hey, harpies are over here if you so wish. But for the most part, the things that were already present in the Truth Behind the Myth are just kind of dialed up in mythology. The biggest thing that is obviously going to be the standout thing with mythology is the new expedition system. Once you reach turn 15, you can go on an expedition. This will allow you to get access to either the Cerberus, Hydra, or Griffin. That creature will join your army and it will add a new button right here that will then pull you through some mechanics. Let's jump over to that real quick. So moving into one of my campaigns that I'm a little further in, you can see that I've done the Griffin fight and I now have a Griffin on the battlefield, or I'm sorry, on the campaign map for me to use. It'll give me some special agent actions to do that will give me some bonuses or do some certain things to the enemy. Just boons on my overall campaign. But as I said, as soon as you finish your expedition, you get this whole little mythic monster ability. And it adds a whole layer of gameplay that you kind of have to balance on a knife's edge. For example, with the Griffin, I'm either going to push the harmony towards the Griffin or with the Aramas boy. This will then grant me special skills that I then will use in my campaign that I can select. Eye for gold, all together now, right feathered, so on and so forth. And these will give me, again, bonuses that I can then put either on my units, on the Griffin itself, or for my faction. Depends upon what I'm doing and which of the three outcomes I've chosen, right? You can try to strike a balanced harmony between the three, or choose one or the other. This will then, again, like I said, unlock that respective special skill in that location. So the layering and addition of the monster expeditions is awesome because it exists parallel to the main campaign. Once you reach level 15, you'll be able to do this as you're doing your overall victory conditions for your campaign that you have in mind. But this gives you a really good idea now of all three game modes for Total War Saga Troy. If you have any questions about them, like, hey, you know, can you get some more details about the historical mode, all that? As of the release of this video, the marketing embargo for historical mode just lifted, so I can talk more about it. If you're watching this way after the fact, doesn't matter. You probably now can go crazy with it. But as always, guys, let me know if you have any questions about any of the game modes or you'd like some other expansions upon any of the things I brought up in this video. More than happy to give you as many details as I can. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to comment, like, or subscribe with any one of those three. But have a good one and take care.